Okay, so I just finished this book. It's called Rebuild Yourself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, rebuild yourself. Let your focus be on you every day.
Okay.
It's by Justice O. Malcolm. And it's really all about taking control and rebuilding your life into something that you actually want. Not just like some vague idea of success, but what matters to you.
I like that.
And, it's funny because it starts in a kind of unexpected place.
Oh, really? Where?
It asks you to think back to your childhood. Like, what were you really into as a kid? What excited you? What were you just naturally drawn to?
Interesting.
Yeah. And it suggests that even if those passions seem totally different from what you're doing now, they might actually hold some clues about what really drives you as an adult.
So it's like even if you were obsessed with dinosaurs as a kid and now you're an accountant, there's something in that childhood passion that could inform, I don't know, your career or like your hobbies or something.
Yeah, it's not about literally picking up those exact same hobbies, but more about thinking about the motivation behind them. Like, what was it about those things that really made you happy? Was it the creativity? Problem solving? Was it a sense of accomplishment? Those are the things the book says are really worth exploring.
That makes sense.
And once you've sort of reconnected with those core things that drive you, then the book gets pretty real. It calls it cultivating self-awareness. But it's really about being brutally honest with yourself.
No sugarcoating.
None. No excuses.
Okay, so like what kind of stuff are we talking about here?
It's about facing those things you might normally avoid. Like what are your deepest values? What really motivates you to make decisions? What are the things that make you react negatively and why?
It sounds intense, but I can see how that would be really helpful.
It can be a little uncomfortable, but the book makes a good case that the more you actually understand yourself, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, the better you'll be able to handle, well, basically everything that life throws your way.
So it's like building a strong foundation.
Exactly. If you're trying to build on something shaky, the whole thing's just going to fall apart.
Right.
And that leads into the next big idea, which is prioritizing your well-being. It's all about treating yourself with the same care and attention that you would give to someone you really love.
So being as kind to yourself as you are to like your best friend.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you exhausted? Rest. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Find a healthy way to de-stress. It's not about pushing yourself to the limit all the time.
Makes sense. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
That's exactly what the book says. It's about recognizing that you can't do your best if you're running on empty.
I like that.
So, if you're liking what you're hearing so far, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into books like this. And don't forget to share this with your friends who you think might find it helpful too.
Now let's talk about habits, because we all know how important they are.
Right. But they could be tough to change.
The book has a really good take on this whole habit thing.
Yeah, it's pretty refreshing. It encourages you to start small, like ridiculously small.
Okay, so not trying to do a complete life makeover overnight.
Nope. It's about consistency, not intensity. So like, let's say you want to start meditating, right? Instead of trying to meditate for an hour every day right off the bat, start with just 5 minutes. The point is to do it every single day. And once that becomes a habit, you can slowly increase it.
That's way less intimidating than just diving in headfirst.
It feels so much more sustainable that way. And it all ties into this bigger theme in the book, embracing personal growth.
So it's not about like reaching some finish line where you're perfect.
No way. It's about constantly learning, adapting, and evolving.
So does that mean like being okay with messing up?
Totally. The book actually talks about how setbacks can be really valuable.
Okay, but how are setbacks valuable? Aren't they like bad?
They're not failures. The book calls them learning opportunities. They're like data points to help you figure out what to adjust.
That's a good way to look at it.
Right. It takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like giving yourself permission to experiment and just learn from the stumbles along the way.
So you're saying it's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. Okay, so speaking of guiding principles, the book goes really deep into the importance of core values.
I've heard that term a lot, but what does it actually mean?
It's not just about vague ideas of what's important. It's about identifying those non-negotiable principles that drive your decisions and actions.
So the things you're not willing to budge on no matter what.
Exactly. It's about figuring out what matters most to you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know what those are, you can start to align your actions with them.
I can see how that would make decision-making a lot easier.
It's like having a personal compass, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say honesty is one of your core values. If you're faced with a situation where you could benefit from being dishonest, your compass will point you toward telling the truth. even if it's harder.
It's about staying true to yourself.
Yes, exactly. And then the book tackles this whole idea of goal setting, but in a way I hadn't really thought about before.
Uh,
It's not about those vague, big, scary dreams that can leave you feeling totally overwhelmed.
right, those can be paralyzing.
Exactly. It's about setting realistic goals that actually fit with your values and breaking those down into smaller, manageable steps.
So like bite-sized pieces you can actually handle.
Yeah. And it talks about this method for setting goals called the SMART goal method.
I think I've heard of that.
It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay, so it's about being really intentional with your goals.
And it shares this story about someone who used this method to finally get their finances in order, which I found really inspiring.
I love a good success story.
It's a good reminder that achieving something big doesn't have to feel like this huge, scary thing. It's about taking consistent action towards those smaller goals.
It's about the small wins adding up over time.
Right. And the book says it's also super important to celebrate those wins no matter how small.
Why is that so important?
It keeps you motivated and reinforces the belief that you really can do what you set your mind to.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I'm curious about what it says about self-care. That's a hot topic these days.
It is. And the book takes it beyond bubble baths and face masks, which is nice.
Yeah, there's more to it than that, for sure.
It's about finding ways to nourish your mind, body, and soul in a way that feels right for you. It encourages creating a daily routine that includes things that actually make you feel good.
I like that. It's personalized self-care.
And it's about figuring out what that looks like for you. It could be going for a walk in nature. It could be listening to your favorite music, spending time with people you love, or reading a good book.
Anything that helps you recharge.
Exactly. The point is to make it a regular thing, something you actually prioritize and schedule into your day.
Not just something you squeeze in if you have time.
Right. It's not a luxury, it's essential. And here's a reminder, you don't have to do any of this alone.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel like you're tackling these things solo.
The board talks about how important it is to build and foster those relationships that bring you joy.
Having a good support system makes such a difference.
It's about nurturing those connections that bring positivity and support into your life. The people who build you up, celebrate your wins, and are there for you when things get tough.
It's about surrounding yourself with good people.
Exactly. And you know what's really exciting?
Like?
The book talks about this whole idea of unlocking your creative potential.
Okay, but what if you don't consider yourself a creative person?
It argues that we all have creative potential, even if we don't think of ourselves as creative in the traditional sense.
Interesting.
It's about exploring those things that really get you excited, surrounding yourself with inspiration, and here's the big one, not being afraid to mess up.
It's tough to get past that fear of failure.
The book actually reframes mistakes as stepping stones,
Mm-hmm.
essential lessons that help you grow and evolve.
I like that. Mistakes are just part of the process.
Exactly. It's like giving yourself permission to experiment and have fun with it.
Yeah, to be playful with it all.
Exactly. But, there's a catch.
What's that?
We all have those limiting beliefs that get in the way. The negative thoughts that tell you you're not good enough or you're going to fail.
Oh, yeah. Those can be tough to shake.
The book encourages you to challenge those thoughts and try replacing them with positive affirmations.
Okay, so instead of focusing on what you can't do, focus on what you can do.
It's like rewiring your brain for success. And of course, we can't talk about all of this without acknowledging stress.
Right. Stress is a part of life.
The book doesn't pretend it doesn't exist. It says stress is a part of life, but that we have way more power over it than we realize.
So what's the secret?
Well, it's about identifying those stressors that you can actually control. It's about finding ways to reduce stress in your daily routine and learning how to reframe those situations that you find really stressful.
Give me an example.
Like, okay, if you know that sitting in traffic always stresses you out, maybe you can try listening to a calming podcast during your commute or explore different routes.
Ah, I see. It's about finding ways to manage the stress.
It's all about taking back control. Which brings us to this idea of emotional intelligence, which is a term you hear everywhere these days.
It is, and it can sound kind of vague.
The book breaks it down really well.
Yeah.
It's not just about being aware of your own feelings. It's about understanding how those emotions affect what you think and what you do. And it's about having empathy for other people.
So it's about being able to recognize when someone's having a bad day and responding with kindness instead of letting their negativity affect you.
That's a great example. It's like leveling up your emotional game.
Right.
It can be a game changer for your relationships, both personal and professional.
Hmm.
And, this might sound small, but the book talks about the importance of celebrating small victories.
Oh, yeah. Those little wins can really add up.
It reminds us to acknowledge those little steps forward, no matter how insignificant they might seem.
Why is that so important?
Because those small wins build momentum. They keep you motivated and remind you that you're actually making progress. And that's something worth celebrating.
I'm starting to see a theme here. It's all about those little things adding up over time to create big change.
You got it.
And you know where this gets really powerful?
Where?
This whole idea of unlocking your authentic self. It's about peeling back those layers we put on, like the self-doubt and those voices that say you're not good enough,
Yeah.
and just rediscovering who you truly are underneath it all.
It's like finally stepping into your own spotlight,
Yes.
Not trying to be somebody you're not,
Yeah.
but embracing those things that make you uniquely you.
Exactly. And it all starts with those core values that we were talking about earlier. Those principles, they really shape how you see the world, how you make decisions. It's about knowing what truly matters to you deep down.
So it's not enough just to know your values, you have to actually live them. Make sure your choices, big and small, reflect what you believe.
That's exactly it. Walking the walk, not just talking the talk. But here's something the book really stresses: embracing those imperfections we all have.
Because nobody's perfect.
Nobody. And those things we see as flaws. They're often what make us interesting, what make us relatable.
Okay, so it's not about striving for some impossible standard of perfection.
Right.
It's about accepting those quirks, seeing them as part of what makes you, well, you.
Absolutely. Letting go of that need to be perfect and just embracing the perfectly imperfect version of yourself. And that goes hand in hand with trusting your own journey,
Okay.
knowing that your path is going to be different from everyone else's. And that's okay.
So less comparing yourself to others and more about what works for you, even if it's not what society tells you should be doing.
Exactly. Embrace that uncertainty and trust you'll figure things out as you go. And that's where that self-confidence comes in.
Okay, so believing in yourself
Mhm.
and your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
That's it. Recognizing your strengths, acknowledging your accomplishments, not in an arrogant way,
Right.
but giving yourself credit for how far you've already come
Okay.
and trusting that you can keep moving forward.
So basically silencing that inner critic.
Yeah.
The one that's always telling you you're not good enough.
That's the one. And replacing those negative thoughts with positive ones, reminding yourself what you are capable of.
Okay, so it's a conscious choice to focus on the good, even when things are tough,
Yeah.
to see challenges as chances to learn and grow.
That's the idea. And we can't forget about emotional intelligence. Understanding your own emotions, being able to manage them, and having empathy for others, it's huge.
It's like a superpower in relationships, isn't it?
It really is, because you're able to not only recognize your own feelings, but also the feelings of others, and then respond in a way that actually strengthens those bonds.
Makes sense.
Think of it as honing that emotional awareness. It's a skill you can actually develop,
Okay.
and it pays off in every single area of your life.
The book also talks about mindfulness, this idea of being present in the moment and